community who say that they don't like this kind of violence. But unfortunately, I haven't met any imam yet who gives this message. And my opinion is that if you don't speak out against it, you are responsible for it. And this is what
First of all, you're magnificent. But my question, in Holland is not a very large country. You have already, I think, 500,000 Muslims. Do they vote? What do you expect out of the demography in Holland in terms of rescuing the country?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for the question. I don't know who of you have been able to read Mark Stein's America Alone. It's a fantastic book that talks about the problem of demography in Europe. And indeed, we have, out of 60 million people in the Netherlands, we have 1 million Muslims already today. And what we should do is that we should stop the immigration from people from Muslim countries. Not, once again, because all Muslims are bad people, not because all Muslims are terrorists, this is nonsense, but because if we keep continuing the mass immigration from countries like from the Middle East, from the Maghreb, then at the end of the day, they will bring so much of this ideology, of this culture full of hatred, that it will change our society entirely. So the first step we should take in Europe is stop the immigration from Muslim countries. The second thing we should do, that the people that are already in our societies, we should give them a choice. All the Muslims in Holland, or all over Europe, or maybe even the United States, that's up to you, for you to decide. We should give them a choice. Either you adhere to our values, to our rules, to our laws, to our customs, to our society. And if you do, you are welcome to stay, you are equal, and we will even help you to integrate. But if you don't, if you cross the red line, if you start thinking about Sharia as a good idea, if you commit a crime, any crime, then we are not talking to you, we are sending you away, and there is the job.
Thank you so much. I've been following what you've been doing, and I'm probably humbled to be in your presence. As a person who is working with the Center for Security Policy on Sharia banking and finance, my concern also, and I'd like you to address it, is the silent jihad of the infiltration of Sharia law into our banking systems.
Yeah, well, you are fully right. It is happening all over Europe. I don't know.
What's the question? What was the question?
About Sharia banking infiltrating in our societies. Sharia banking is part of Sharia law. And I have to answer you that unfortunately this is very true. It is happening in the Netherlands. It is happening in the United Kingdom. It is happening in many countries throughout Europe. Sharia is already there, not only when it comes to the Sharia codes in Britain, but when it comes to halal food, when it comes to Sharia banking, when it comes to the increasing wearing of the niqab, all those kind of things. Sharia is in our societies today, and we should not look in another direction, because, ladies and gentlemen, it goes step by step. With Sharia means the end of the democracy, and we, being non-Muslims, being Kafirs, will be the first one to pay a heavy price when Sharia is introduced. Yeah.
Unlike in the U.S., where it doesn't seem there's a huge dichotomy policy-wise between liberals and conservatives in terms of how to deal with the Middle East, it seems like in Britain especially, but also in other places in Europe, the left is very anti-Israel and very anti- and pro-Palestinian, yet it's the same people, these liberals, that are the most threatened by Sharia law. And can you explain how there's a sort of myopia or blindness to what's going on and what the policy is in the Middle East?
Well, that's a very good question. Let me first say that there is a very strange connection between the left, the liberals, and Islam. I mean, the left should be, if you think logically, should be the first to denounce Islam, because when it comes to the rights of women, when it comes to the rights of homosexuals, they should be the first to denounce the Islamization, but they are not. They are as worse as one another, almost. And why? why it's in Europe, why it's in my country the way, because for two reasons. The first reason is that the left and the liberals invented this concept not only of the multicultural society but of cultural relativism. They were the one who invited people to immigrate to our societies. They were the one who said, well, don't say anything bad about another religion because they are one of us. It's all the same. Like I said, sing kumbaya together. Don't hassle us about anything. Thank you so much, Björn. Sometimes politicians are just like normal human beings, not being able to say that they were wrong. The second reason, which is a very important reason, is that they became dependent on one another. The Muslim vote in all European countries go for 98% to the liberal and leftist parties. So they have no room, they are paralyzed by that. And in my own country, the second biggest country of Holland, Rotterdam, the socialists, the social democrats were won only by the Muslim vote. They won the local elections only for that reason. So it paralyzes them. Well, when it comes to the Middle East, indeed, to support the United States, to support the state of Israel is not for a politician. You don't become very popular by that. Because unfortunately, in Europe, there is an enormous tendency to anti-Israel and anti-the US. And I don't care. I'm a friend of Israel. I lived a couple of years in Israel. I believe, I have many friends in Israel. I believe we all are Israel because the jihad, like I said, against Israel is not a jihad against Israel, but a jihad against itself.
Many of us, I'm sure, listen to conservative talk radio in this country as a counter to liberal media. Is there an emerging movement like that in Europe? Is there free conservative talk radio? And the second question is that some of these hosts, talk show hosts, float the idea that we will see civil war in Europe. And do you see that?
Well, first, your first question, well, unfortunately, I don't know for all European countries, but let me talk about the Netherlands, my own country. 99% of the press is liberal and is left. And all of the state-subsidized public television and radio are the most terrible of all. And the privatized, the private and the commercial, they don't even talk about politics. So unfortunately, what we really need in Holland is some kind of conservative talk radio. Is a Fox News or a channel like that? We don't have it, unfortunately, in our country. When it comes to civil war, well, nobody wants a civil war. I don't want a civil war either. I don't want any war. But I know one thing, that like I said, the public is so much fed up that if there will not be a change, they might take the law in their own hands. And this is, of course, something we should try to prevent in any way, because we are Democrats in the democratical sense of the word, and we don't want that to happen. But it's the responsibility of our governments not to ignore the people. And unfortunately, they are doing that today.
We're going to take two more questions. I think we have one there, and then this gentleman here.
As an American and as a Jew, I want to thank you for your extraordinary courage. Unfortunately, you seem to be a unique figure on the world stage. Are there colleagues in Europe, in Israel, and in the U.S. who stand with you, and are there any coordinated efforts
Yes,
to
thank you.
fight this battle?
Thank you for this question. It's a very important question. And luckily, I'm not the only one. I might be one of the most well-known ones, but there are more parties in Europe that also not only are gaining popularity, but are really concerned about everything that we are talking about the position of Israel, about the immigration, about the Islamization. They are there. Like, for instance, in Denmark, the Danish People Party of Pia Kjærsgaard. But also in Israel, there are very friendly party. In fact, as a matter of fact, we had last December, we had a Congress against jihad organized by the member of the Knesset, Ariel Eldad, who was elected in Israel, re-elected in Israel. And of course, what we are trying to do is to bring together as many parties, both political parties as organizations from the grassroots level, to combine forces. Because if we combine forces, we are only stronger. And how good would it be if, also in the United States, people like Senator Kyle of Congresswoman Sulmaira